Welcome, Automating Success followers and listeners. I have the pleasure of being the host of Jason Kelly. He's a tech entrepreneur with deep experience in applied autonomy and industrial AI. He's the CEO of Fremont Robotics, a startup dedicated to automating dull, dirty, and dangerous tasks across manufacturing, energy facilities, management, and more. Jason has built businesses and products in automatic in drone applications, industrial, IoT, and agricultural data analysis. At Fremont Robotics, he's leading the application of generative AI to ease the skilled labor shortage in the industry. So, this is my introduction for Jason. Jason, how did I do? Did we do okay? Did I miss anything? Anything you want to add?
No, Joe, great intro. Thanks for having me on the show. Sounds like you've known me for years. And yeah, thanks for bringing me on.
Well, I'm a big team guy, and honestly, I can't take credit for some of that stuff. I have a great podcast producer, and his team has always done me well, so I appreciate them, and I'm glad they did you proud. So once again, I just want to welcome you to the show. To me, when I saw your bio and what was coming on, you know, I'm kind of doing similar things, right? So there's some great parallels here. So I'm really hoping that we can create a great show for people. So tell me a little bit more, like what kind of energizes you to be in this space. What takes, because at the end of the day, we all do it for a reason. So go a little bit into that for me.
Yeah, I would say I definitely started into this space because of the love of technology. I started as a software engineer and worked at Microsoft and AWS for a while, and got to work on some hardware projects and bridge that gap between developing software and making it work on great hardware that helps users out. Um, and that's fine, but what really got me energized and turning this into a career and a company was actually going out on site with some of the end users and seeing how they're trying to use technology. Frankly, sometimes how badly we fail them as technologists with difficult to use products and products that have bugs. And then after getting through all that, just the excitement of seeing someone's eyes light up because you're helping them do their job better or safer, or just giving them capabilities they didn't have before through technology. So I'm really chasing that high, and that's what brought me to robotics now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. You said a couple points I want to expand on. First of all, the people that produce the technology, it's always easy to them, which typically is what makes it complicated for the end user because they forget the fact the end user never didn't go to
Mm.
school for this stuff, right? So there's typically a little bit of an issue with making it just easily work, yeah, right? But then secondly, um, I think that the other thing in the space is they try to figure out once the novelty and the coolness of like, oh, I have a robot wears off, how to actually make it consistently, continuously work for them so it does do the job that it was made for. Because once the sexiness of the new thing goes away, it just has to continue to work, right? And it sounds like that's
Right,
one of the things that you specialize in helping to make happen, correct?
right. We just really specialize in working with industrial customers to give them useful robotics and useful data. I mean, you're totally right about the sexiness of a new robot showing up on site. Everyone wants to see it and drive it and see it in action. But then at the end of the day, you've added a new machine to your inventory that has a battery and motors and everything that you have to maintain. And it's got to earn its keep just like anyone else. It's got to provide an ROI and be maintainable and useful for the long term.
Yeah. So, knowing that a lot of people are listening to this and they're never going to see anything or understand it, try to paint a picture of like what one of your typical pieces of automation look like and take us from, so people driving right now can understand what we're talking about that you work on.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'll start with just what kind of customers we're focused on.
Yeah.
We're really dedicated to the asset heavy industries. And by that, I mean industries with large, expensive machinery, complex production processes. Think about manufacturing and oil and gas plants, energy, transmission. Those are all really different industries with different inputs and outputs, but they've got a common thread. They've got these capital intensive pieces of equipment, and they need skilled people to install them and operate them and maintain them. And then that's really hard, skilled work. And they're all facing the labor shortage of those skilled workers. So you don't want to waste their time. You don't want to send them into kind of dirty or dangerous locations. You want to preserve the safety of their work environment. And these are just places that robots fit in really naturally if you apply them correctly. Um, so what the platforms we are working on delivering are first the robots are ground robots. They might be wheeled robots or quadruped robots. We can talk more about the hardware there. For reliability, we source those from other OEMs, from already proven platforms. Um, the the technologies come to the point where we don't need to design our own platform to get the sensors where they need to go. Um, we can purchase or contract with a company to build a ground robot or a quadruped robot, and we'll really understand the scenario it's going into and outfit it with the right sensors and the right equipment on and around it. Um, and then a lot of the secret sauce is actually, how do you tell that robot to do what it needs to do? How do you automate it to do autonomous missions, autonomous inspections in a way that is easy and makes sense to the end user? And how do you get that data somewhere useful so it's not stuck on the robot? So our development is around the software layer that brings that all together, and that's the the hypothesis we have for the venture funding put into Fremont Robotics to make this happen.
So I mean, so it's like you hear terms like generative AI, right? And
Mhm.
it's I think it's crazy. And one of the things I want to educate people listening is, there's all these terms around AI. So what's that? What you just said, that's generative AI, or where do terms like that come from? Like, explain that to the people listening.
Yeah,
You know?
I, I'd say where generative AI comes in, and especially in the industry in robotics, um, a lot of people listening to the show have probably tried out ChatGPT, the newest generative AI company out there, and it's turned out to be really useful for work. I find it really useful at home. I use it for bedtime stories that generated for my son, puts him right to sleep and gives me some time after hours. Um, but when you take generative AI and think about how it can actually be valuable in industry, um, there's a couple hard problems that it's really close to helping us solve. Um, Today, if you think about putting a robot in your operations, whether you're in manufacturing or construction or facilities maintenance or anywhere, you've got to get trained up on how to use that specific robot, how to drive it, how to charge it, how to configure it. Um, you've got to know what robot's right for the job, and you need to know how to program it to do the right thing. And most people out there aren't software developers or robotics engineers. They don't want to be. They shouldn't have to be to use these tools to get their jobs done. And what we are building is the ability to take generative AI and use it so you can tell a robot what you need done in your own words, and the model will transform it to robot speak. Um, Pick the right robot for the job, generate the mission instructions, and bring the data back. And we've actually been really pleasantly surprised by how good it's getting at that task. Um,
So
so
continue on. Sorry, I'm like overflowing with thought here. So go ahead. I interrupted you.
cool.
Continue on.
That's
Yep.
the good way to be. So what some of the things we've brought out for pilot is first just generating the mission, telling the robot what to do. So if you think about, if you're at a liquid natural gas plant, you don't want to drive the robot around to get data manually. Why can't you just say, get all the gauge readings from sector 4? Um, and what Gen AI can do with that is it it has the context. It knows about your facility. It knows where Sector 4 is and what assets are there. Um, it can choose the robot in the right place with the right capabilities. So if you feed it the right context, it can know, okay, I need a wheeled robot at this location to send it around. Um, it can give the robot the waypoints to go on and tell it to read a gauge at each asset. Um, and then the magic behind the scenes is programming all the computer vision capabilities and the navigation capabilities you need on the robot. But Gen AI lets us really bridge the gap between the complexity of this robot and the people who just want to get their job done.
So why I was overflowing with thought is the entire reason my company AOS exists in the space that I'm in is we are the people right now trying to figure out, you know, if somebody says I want a robot to mow my grass, and the manufacturers they oversell, they overpromise and underdeliver, right? Oh yeah, we could do 18 acres, but they don't figure in irrigation timing and the turf type and how thick the grass is and how much they fertilize. So we're doing all that like with people. So it's ironic you're bringing this up because I'm literally trying to figure out how to take all the information that I am learning with all of my team and try to get that into like an AI model so that we can expand and just grow exponentially, right? Because that's ultimately what all of this AI stuff will do is it'll just fuel growth and kind of build off it. But how do you get the information in? So you said, you know, take and check it data, like all these readings here. So, how do you get it where, I mean, do you just follow a human being around and do it once and then it constructs it, like, right? So how does that even work? Like, how do you take it from what you need at the front
Mm.
end to the output, what it actually is, on the back end?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, and it's kind of the hard part of what's happening in robotics right now. Um, the the really important parts of kind of applying AI to doing this, I think it's three segments. It's giving it the context, teaching it the rules, and then having some human judgment on the end to make sure the computer's doing the right thing. Um, so first with the context, you need a way to tell the system what's what's the facility. It's a 2 acre yard at this GPS location with this map. Feed it a map. Need to feed it the other features of the area and really as much context as you can apply to the situation. So, like you said, location of irrigation fixtures, maybe even terrain types, um, a elevation model of where you are, so it can calculate slopes and the like.
Yeah.
Um, so, but that's all just a bunch of data that's not useful on your own. The second part is teaching the generative model what to do with all that data. Um, and that's I think where the real breakthrough is coming out with models like GPT. Um, it's always been possible to do that, but you had to do it in very complicated computer code that takes um, you know years to create and debug, and is turns into kind of a real mess sometimes. Um, and with generative AI, you can actually tell it the rules in English or your language of choice, and it can interpret those and take the context in. So instead of putting in all these schedules and readings, you can tell it, don't mow while it's raining. And it it will have enough context to know, okay, I'll check this weather report. I will check the rain sensors that are outside. And if those are positive, I'll block the mowing. And it takes a lot of testing and a lot of organization to get it to work, but it's really coming to the point where you can use that for natural language commands. And then
So
the
how
last part
long?
of that is,
Oh yeah, good. Sorry, I
yeah.
thought you were done.
And
Continue.
then
Yeah, go ahead.
the last most important part of that is we st- it's going to be a long time, if ever, before we replace human judgment and having a brain in the loop for these things. So someone needs to look at the mission that comes out of that, the robot instructions, and say, is it the right instructions? Will it do the job? And is it safe? Um, just as that last safety check, that last check and balance on the AI going awry and taking them over to the wrong place.
So to give people an idea, okay, so where we are today, how many years in the making is our current state of generative AI? You know, like meaning like because I feel like there's a lot of people you talk to and they're like, oh, now that chat came out, like, oh, did you see this? But I mean, I don't think they understand fully, how long this was probably in the working. So what's your opinion on this? Because knowing where we were, like how long it's taken us to get to where we are today, the next part of my question would be, where do you think we're going to be in the next 5 to 10 years based on that exponential growth?
I think it's a lot of people don't get exposure to kind of the history of where this has all come from. And what we see is an overnight success for generative AI and chat GPT. It's actually 50 years plus in the making, from AI research on everything from how do you actually get a computer to understand English words, language words, and parse them, uh, uh, to the machine learning revolution of the last 10 years of how do you make a computer not just follow instructions but learn from its data. And there have been thousands and thousands of researchers and companies um, who have been tangling with this and delivering new innovations all along to make this happen. Um, and then you get a company like OpenAI who assembles a ton of really skilled people with these backgrounds, and they hit upon this model, and even they were almost pretty surprised by what came out of their lab. It was less of a development and more of a discovery, which is pretty exciting. Um, and it's also a little disorienting because even they're still trying to figure out what it can do and how we deal with it and how do we make it safe and useful for everyone. So it's an overnight success, but I think we're definitely going to continue to see a rapid growth of how you can use it, what it can do. And I think we're just at the beginning of this right now.
So now that overnight success has happened, though, do you think there's a way? I mean, I'm thinking myself, is you use that discovery as part of what fuels the faster growth. So it's not 50 more years to get where we've come, but
Right,
maybe 5 to 10, because now we have that assistance, right?
right. I I think the core thing that's maybe changed the world is not about the technology, it's about the mindset and how many people have access to this kind of technology. Um, if you asked me 2 years ago, how will I use AI in my daily work? I'd have trouble answering that question for you myself. Um, Now everyone's seeing what this can do. They're getting their hands on it, and it's opening up this idea factory around the world of how you can actually apply AI to help you with your work, to make you better at what you do, and to, um, you know, hopefully even maybe give people a little more time off in the future.
So, well, that's unique for everybody. So the question would be, because like, and these questions, I'm so like when I look at it, like for me right now, like some of the AI ideas that I have with the space I'm in, I am constantly like I'm worried about other people learning them. But the reality of it is, do you think it's safe to say, with where the space is going, the AI will, I mean, since you said if you got asked 2 years ago what you would use it for work, you wouldn't even know where to say. So do you think it might be safe to say everything you and I are imagining today might already be outthought just by the AI in itself?
I think things are going so fast that the the things we're trying to fill out and make work today are going to be just par for the course in maybe 2 years, not even 5 to 10. The capabilities are growing so fast, and the the tools are being made so much more accessible to to everyone, not just the chosen few of the inner circle of AI anymore.
Yeah,
And so, but what's exciting is you might see other people we'll talk about ideas on this show, and hopefully it will inspire some other people to try things out. Things are moving so quickly that you and I can't even keep up with it. We're going to continue thinking up new applications, and we have the chance to help everyone come up and kind of lift everyone's ships to use AI. And hopefully along the way, we'll stay a couple steps ahead and keep inventing and keep sharing what we're doing. Um, there's also the fact that every industry, every job will use AI a little differently from the other. Um, so these foundation technologies are being built at a rapid pace. Then multiply that by 100 or more industries, and there's all that work to do to figure out how to tame the beast and leverage the strength of generative AI for each of these industries. Um, so that's where we are today.
Well, and I think it's important to say because there's a lot of people that are scared of it, but like for myself, when I'm thinking of ideas of how to use it, I'm not thinking of how I'm going to use it to get rid of people or even make more profit, which the profit will come just on its own, but it's actually to provide a better user experience for my customer base. So when you brought up that how every company will have their own little tweak or way to use it, you know, I think that myself, and I want you to expand on this, like when I'm thinking about all the ideas of how I can use AI for my company, it just makes me more replicatable. Like people tell me all the time in my day, yeah, Joe, you need to have like 5,000 Joes. But with AI, I likely can make 5,000 Joes. I can allow my customer to feel like they're talking to me every time if I feed it right. Right. So, what's your, I mean, do you agree with me on that or?
I think you're right on. What's opening up for us is the ability to scale ourselves and scale our knowledge and our judgment and our decision making to have a bigger impact than ever before. Um, if I go back to these field engineers out on an oil rig, today one guy has to helicopter in, walk around, do an inspection, read all the gauges, take some thermal readings, and then helicopter on to the next place. Um, he's he or she is highly trained, is able to make these judgments, but has to get transported from place to place to get it done. Um, if he instead has a robotic agent out there doing the data capture and the physical work of going around and collecting this information, um, he can be a lot more effective at his office desk, just judging that data and making sense of it. So that's what I think the 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 fastest way Gen AI is going to accelerate over the next 5 years or so is scaling us up in that way. And in the future, we think about like having this smart agent working for you that is an assistant that you've trained. It knows your work. It knows your context. Um, you've been sharing your emails and your communications with it all along, and it can then be the agent for you and scale that up to talk to 5,000 customers. Then you have that 5,000 Joes working for you that you don't really have to pay. You don't have to feed them and give them a place to live, but they'll help you remove the blockers from growing your business. Um, and that blocker is there's only one of you today, and there's only so much you can do.
Well, and Jason, it's I mean, I really comments how often I'm smiling, and I'm smiling all the time because I haven't like I mean I see you've done a lot in the space, but a lot of people are like when it comes to like raising capital or whatever, they're like, oh, Joe, everything you're doing is great, but you just got to make more use. And then I'm sitting back here being like, you're just not listening to my show because AI is here. Like all I need to do is figure out someone to partner with to scale me, and then everything I'm doing is the AOS way. And the reality is there's a lot of people in spaces that are offering great value, doing it a little bit different. It's like, I can go to one Italian restaurant, love the lasagna, go to another one, love the lasagna there. I can't really tell you the difference between the two, but I will have a taste for each one differently. Ultimately, I think in many businesses, that is the way that it is, right? Whether you're making robots or doing coding or making food. So I'm always so interested in the space and how how I feel like some of us understand it so easily. Like to me, I feel like this is very easy for me to grasp, but other people, I think their lack of understanding of it is what scares them away from the space. But I don't know. To me personally, I'm just excited about where it's going to take businesses, you know?
Yeah,
So,
definitely. And if you think about how businesses scale their production or their work, the only way you could do it for the last how many hundred years since the Industrial Revolution is build more factories to crank out more widgets of the same type, more of the same car, more of the same washing machine. Um, and to to make more and to grow your business, you had to lose the individuality and the customization. Um, that's that's not going to be a constraint anymore, I believe. You'll be able to scale up and individualize what you're creating or the processes you're doing for the situation, without having to have thousands of people managing that process and having those costs.
well, and you'll have a more consistent brand because when you have thousands of people managing it, it's like having thousands of people make the same recipe. There's always going to be a slight variation. So that's where I go back to that
Mhm.
common outlook for the consumer. It's like it's what they expect to get every time continues to come, you know. So I don't want to stay on this too long because time is flying with you. I see we're already 30 minutes into the show. And so, how long has Fremont Robotics been at it? Like kind of take me back down your history a little bit, like how long you been at it here, and are there some other things that have gotten, I mean, obviously we all become experts in our space for a reason. There's a trail. So it kind of get us there.
Right. Well, my personal journey has been, I mentioned, you know, getting falling in love with the hardware software interface and building that for people. And I got to work on some really cool projects earlier in my career. One of them was the first smartwatch out on the market that was made by Microsoft, long before your Apple Watch or any of that. This was a real research challenge on how to pack this into a small, low power device and make it useful for users. Um, and that for me was a real formative experience, working across that whole stack and working with the engineering team there. Um, and then I got involved in industry a little bit, specifically agriculture and greenhouses. Um, we were working kind of early in the trend of Internet of Things and placing sensors and data processing on equipment out in the field. And I got to work with John Deere on some harvest and planting automation projects. Um, and that was that was at first a really humbling experience, because I think of myself as a real smart technologist. Made a great mobile app that farmers could use to automate their planting. Um, and we released the app, and then my next job was to go out to farms in Iowa and Texas and ride along in the cab while these farmers actually used the application, and that was we learned a lot from that. What we thought was simple was just really like a really insular way of looking at the world through our view, and there's so much more to the world out there that we needed to learn about. Um, so coming along from there, I got to work in the drone industry as well, building autonomous drone systems for data collection and power line inspection and farm mapping. And that was my first foray into robotics. Um, Fast forward into early this year, we started Fremont Robotics at the beginning of 2023 with the idea that we could build a company around integrating these solutions and bringing them to industry. We started out just in my garage actually, and s- soon got some seed funding and a lab here in near Seattle, and we're in the prototype phase of bringing these integrated robot systems out to oil and gas rigs and manufacturing floors, to show how they can be simple, useful, and provide a good return on investment.
So what made you decide to get into that space, knowing that your past? I mean, a watch, ag. learning, driving with the people doing it, and then your oil and gas? Like, is it because some of your partners are already in the space, or you have inroads? Explain that a
I
little.
think what really got me there is I've we have a couple of great advisors who've worked in the industry and have been safety managers and plant managers. And these were just people that I luckily got introduced to through a contact. And for example, I flew down to Houston to meet with one of them who's been involved in the energy industry for decades, and just over a long lunch, understood what the challenges were and found out how much opportunity there is to put automation in place in a way that automates people into a better job or a safer job. Um, and also just got to understand how hard it is today. Even though the technology is there, you can buy a robot and hook it up and drive it around and put sensors on it. But getting the data and getting it to be useful to you is just too hard today. And I saw a big chance to make that easier and make that useful for people and have a big impact there.
That's great. I love that you brought up the fact that it's going to take people into a better, safer job, because it does make a difference who I have on this show. The story is always the same, right? I mean, that's what automation does, and I will say it's like kind of crazy because there's so much great automation, and yet I don't know if this ever happens to you, but I'll tell people what I do and what I'm passionate about. And they're like, "Oh, so you probably love self checkout teller lanes, you know?" And it's like that's like the one piece of automation that people just despise because for some reason they think there need to be people doing this scanning as you walk through. I don't understand the human being's passion for that job position. But what's funny about that is, I suppose is being a teller unsafe? Probably not. Could there be a better job? Maybe. But there's so many things that nobody thinks about that are just unsafe. Foundry jobs, sanding along molten metal, like you said, oil and gas. I mean, all sorts of stuff. So, you know, where do you think, I mean, how far do you think you can go with this? Like, what are your goals to grow in that segment? You know,
Um, yeah, I think our biggest goals, our kind of North Star goal, is to
those are great goals to have, though. The North
yeah
Star goal is good. Yeah.
the North Star for us is to be the choice provider of the integrated system that gets your robot to use. We don't we don't really have aspirations to build robots.
Hmm.
There are great companies out there building robot platforms, building sensors, and they do it well. They make them reliable. I'd rather partner with them than try to get the capital and go out in the market and compete with them. Um, what they're not doing as much or as effectively is diving into these industries and making their products really fit for purpose, really helping people out. Um, and that's where our goal is to just really laser focus on industry, um, uh, get the team together that understands, safety and oil and gas and inspection, and be able to solve these problems with an end-to-end system that you can plug any robot into. You could go and get a spot robot, the robot dog, or you could get a robot on wheels, or even a fleet of drones going out and collecting data from the air, and have them all work together, have them all be controllable by the people on site in field who know the job, and to tame all the data from them and get it into one place that makes sense.
So let me ask you a question, because as you're talking, there's so many parallels to our business, except you're in that space and I'm picking up golf balls and cutting grass and stuff. Because I have no desire to make a robot either. I have a desire to help people make better robots, but I don't want to raise the funds. I'd rather invest in what I'm doing. Do you buy any of this equipment and then put it out in subscription for them, or are you basically asking them to buy their equipment and then you'll integrate how to how to make it better and collect the data for them?
Our uh, our business model longer term is to provide the entire solution as a service. So we will provide the robots as a service, and and the software that they need to get this all done. Um, the customers that I've talked to, they don't really want or need to think about robots. They don't particularly care how the data is getting covered. They want the outcomes that they need, like um, faster time to recovery from downtime, or um, reducing their inspection costs, or getting more out of aging hardware out in the fleet, to get more out of their investments. Um, so if we can come to those customers with a solution that says, we've proven we can get those outcomes for you, you don't have to make a big capital investment in robotics, um, and we'll help you build the expertise there. That's our number one goal.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. So it's like, and I asked because what ends up happening is instead of them having a one-off with the manufacturer to grab a couple of robots, you will have, I mean, I could tell you from my personal experience, because I'm already doing that. I buy the robots and then we put them out in service model, and that's where I'm trying to tie software component to the robotics. So now you have a software as a service model tied to a robotics as a service model. It's a lot easier to raise capital because you have the tangible. I have a robot here, depreciate it, and then I'm layering the software. But in my space, sometimes the manufacturers are for some reason not seeing the value in that. Are you seeing that, or are they embracing what you're doing and saying, "Hey, great, take our product and make it better for the customer"? How's that working for you with the
That
manufacturers?
that definitely comes up. I think the manufacturers are all over the map on how they see that as a service business model. Um, I don't think I'll name names here, but some of them are very insistent on trying to build the customer relationship directly, selling robots direct to customer, getting a servicing agreement in place, um, and they don't have much room for uh, someone adding value in the middle, like we're looking to do. Um, there's a probably more manufacturers that are very open to it because they're they're savvy enough to know that there's a huge market of so many industries out there, so many ways to apply their robots. Um, if they try to go broad and be everything to everyone and be the experts in every industry, they're going to sell far fewer robots than if they enlist companies like ours who are really dedicated to an industry and dedicated to helping people working in that industry. Um, I think it'd be really hard to build a team at a big company, a big robot producer that can service so many different clients all at the same time.
Yeah, well, and I'll use the opportunity in my platform to add without saying any
Mm.
names. But for the people, hopefully the manufacturers that you represent that maybe listen, is they, for as much as they wouldn't want you and I to start to make our own robot, because they would think, well, you're not a manufacturer, so you're not going to catch up anyways. I always find it funny that they think that they can provide the level of service that a Jason or a Joe would offer because that's what we do. So I I I personally think it would be interesting to hear this show 10 years from now and see if I was right. But I personally think the manufacturers that embrace people like us will actually be some of the most successful in their individual spaces because you said it best. They'll sell more units by focusing on what they do best, which is making robots and allowing people like us to do what we do best. And at the end of the day, you did bring up that, at the end of the day, the consumer just wants to bring the information in faster. And there's been a subcontractor model in existence in our country for decades. I mean, people even use temp labor as a subcontractor until they decide they want to permanently hire them. So at the end of the day, we are subcontractors of robotics. And it's a very easy way for the company to onboard because they onboard you through their OpEx instead of their CapEx. And most companies have tons of OpEx uh, leverage or leeway versus CapEx. They have to pre-plan for that. Do you see the same thing in your industry with that also?
Oh, definitely. And the number one thing supporting that, I think, is we're our our solutions don't usually help people purchase and install equipment. Um, we're in an existing facility, and we are helping them operate, and we're helping them improve operations and reduce operational friction. So that's straight up if you go talk to the CFO, that needs to come out of the operations budget. It's not a capital investment. Um, and so making that case, think if you're the safety manager in a big oil company, making the case for a big capital investment in equipment to fix operations, it's a really hard ask to make uh,
Yeah.
in your PowerPoint. Um, so the the outlay, the investment needs to fit the purpose, and that's why if you provide it as a service, um, it's just a much easier purchase for those companies to make, and it helps them show the ROI and get return out of a project like this.
Yeah. No, I think it's such an exciting time for the opportunity in so many different spaces. I mean, it's really different if you're mowing grass, picking up golf balls, working on rigs like you're doing. There's such a need, and what I think is it speaks volumes to when people think that it's replacing jobs. The need wouldn't exist if there were people there willing or able to do the job in the first place. So the fact that there's a need and an opportunity means that the person likely is not getting replaced. So um okay, so we're the time has really gone by pretty quick, and as you said, you've heard the show. So I always like to ask a little bit about background, family, stuff like that. So take me take me to a young you, tell me what you were like, Jason, as a kid in school, and kind of bring me up, and then we'll get to some of the family questions.
Okay, this is fun. I grew up as the oldest of three brothers out on Long Island, New York, and I was I was lucky enough to have some uncles who were ahead of their time. And when I was 3.5, actually, I under the Christmas tree, I got a Radio Shack TRS 80 color computer, and my it was a surprise to my parents too. But my uncle got it for me because he was a computer scientist, and that was the beginning of just a love affair and a whole parallel education that I got to have. I definitely first started playing games on it and having some fun, but it was just such a vehicle for curiosity and to figure out how things work. I got into programming quite a bit early on it and started doing basic programming and assembler programming on it. My parents kind of freaked out one day when they came into my room and I'd taken the thing apart and the pieces were laying all over the place. Um, I did manage to get it back together, thankfully. Otherwise, that would have been the doom. And then growing up, that just stuck with me. Um, uh, it was just become a lifelong passion to play with the technology, see what it can do, and keep going with it. And it still draws me in today. In fact, my son is 8, and he's showing some of the same tendencies for me. And I haven't tried to steer him that way, but I'm more than happy to support it and make random interesting tech toys appear on his desk that he can
Yeah.
take apart.
So you
Um,
said you said you had a couple of brothers or siblings too, brothers or sisters. Was it
yep, I got
family
two
of three?
younger brothers, and
Okay.
one of one of them is a retired police officer, and the other is works in industry as a has been a sheet metal person and a manufacturing engineer and things like that. So it's a kind of a diverse set of people we grew up with.
What did your parents do? Like, how about your mom and dad?
My mom has mostly taken care of the family and been a family person who was able to stay at home with us. And my dad has been he's also in the IT world as a teacher. He is a person who teaches governments how to use the new software packages that they've bought from the company he consults for. So that's uh, that's been fun too.
Yeah, so he's kind of doing a little bit. I mean, it's almost like there's some parallel there. So the so now. I mean, you said you have it was an 8-year-old son, you said,
Yep,
right? Just
11-year-old
one
daughter
then,
and
or
an 8-year-old son.
okay. So, how long have you been married then? Or
I've been married. Um, I've been married 13 years now to a wonderful woman who originally was born in India and came to the U.S. early in the millennium to work in the tech industry as well.
wow, so this industry has been good to you. You know,
It's
it's
been
it's 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 been real good.
it gave me an education. It gave me lots of toys to play with, and it gave me a great family too. So uh, nothing but thanks for all the people who've supported me and the infrastructure that's there for STEM education around that.
So whereabouts do you live now then?
I am in Bellevue, just outside of Seattle, Washington.
Oh, so you were on the East Coast, now you're on the West Coast?
I'm
Did
on the
you grow
West
up on the
Coast.
East Coast?
I
Yeah,
grew
so
up on
did
the
you grow
East
up?
Coast.
Yeah,
I grew up
exactly.
on the
Grew up.
East Coast out on Long Island and
Yeah.
basically made a Western migration slowly. Ended up at, in Iowa for high school and at Iowa State for college, and then moved to Seattle and worked at Microsoft when I finished college. So at that time, Microsoft was a huge draw to the area, and this was almost a company town at that point for Microsoft in a way, and it's just grown so much since then.
So you miss Iowa. I bet you want to go back all the time. You know,
Not this time of year. I'll wait for the spring. It's beautiful there, and
it is beautiful in the Midwest in the spring, that's for sure.
there's some great football to see out there. So that's what's probably going to bring me back next.
Yeah. So then you said your wife was also in the space. So what is, I mean, do you guys happen to work together at all, or what's she doing in the space?
We we met when we worked together at Microsoft, and
Okay.
shortly after that, we realized we're probably never going to work together at the same place again. A little separation, a little distance is good for us. Um, but we talk a lot about the industry. She's a product manager for a company that does live event ticketing, and so she builds their data strategy and their data platform to help to get the most out of ticket sales.
Fantastic. So I mean, looking at all the spaces you were in and everything you did, or would you say it's, I mean, obviously now you're doing your own thing. Is this the happiest you've been in the space, or was there some things you liked about being in the structure of a Microsoft, or, do you want to comment on any of like, you
Yeah,
know,
Joe, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Um, just taking on responsibility to investors and customers to build this business and find the right people to get in and recruit for it, and just make things happen for everyone. It's a big challenge. I've got some good support and some good advisors helping me out, but I feel like I'm learning every day from this, and so that's what's alternately exciting and just scary as hell for me is to get up every day and realize that I've got to do a lot of things that I haven't done before, and just making progress every day, and that's exciting.
yeah, I mean, I can tell you for myself, I mean, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've got several businesses, and what's ironic is if you really develop an appetite for it, Jason, once you get this figured out, and you'll wake up I mean, for me, you wake up on a Sunday morning and then you think about the next thing you want to start up, because once you do it, then all of these things that you're constantly thinking about, they just become normal. So but I will say, like, for myself and for you, I think it'll be the same as you start to build your team of people around you. You end up creating, it's like I feel literally like I'm like the father of my work family, right? As
Mhm.
a business owner, it's like I'm creating something for us to all do together, and I suppose it's much like being a parent to me. I don't know if you feel that parallel at all, having kids yourself, but
Uh, yeah, I definitely do. I think that's what as a business owner and creator, you're not just creating a business and a cash flow and a set of customers, but um, I think part of the thrill of it is you're creating careers for people, and you're creating a place where people can grow and learn and put what they learned in school to work. And it I really found opportunities to kind of shape the business around what people's skills and capabilities and dreams are. So I try to spend at least once a month just some time over coffee with each of the people I work with, um, to understand where they are, and like you've been asking me, where'd they come from? What are their thoughts? What are their dreams? What would they like to do? And you can't always um, do everything you hear there, but you sure can shape your business to create that bond and to help people find what they want to do. And I think we're going to be stronger as a team for doing that.
Yeah, fantastic. So I think we're right on schedule here for about an hour
Right?
for me to say, um, with that, saying everything you're trying to do and what you're trying to create, you know, what do you want, you know, what's your legacy then? Like, right? What do you want? What do you want to be remembered as? Not only in the space, but as a human being in general for the fortunate time we have on this planet we live on,
Um, uh, if I look back, if I think about looking back at what I've what I've done in life, I I'd really like to just have been along with people, helping them out, getting what they want to do done. And what I mean by that is, let me restate. Um, you know, I love technology. I love helping develop it, but I want to the impact I want to have is helping people make sense of it and demystify it, and get make their lives and their work lives and their personal lives better from it. Whether it's out with customers or the team or even with my family at home, let's take what I think is a strength I have and make it turn it into something that can be of service to others.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that as you were telling me that, I was thinking that like one day I should take like a collage of everybody's legacy questions on this show and make it a segment itself because it, it's amazing how some days when I look at the things that happen in this world, when I every time I bring somebody on the show and I hear what they want, it's always about helping people, inspiring an industry, and it's one of my favorite parts of the show is to ask the question because it's like it's a very uplifting part of my day. So thanks for sharing that. Um, and
I
I
think
will
a
say,
episode
uh,
of those I think an episode of those questions and answers would be really inspiring.
yeah,
I'd like
yeah,
to hear
right.
that.
Yeah, it'd be pretty awesome. So I feel like some days, and today's one of those days. I wish I wasn't trying to do 1 hour segments because I feel like we could talk for hours. I feel like there's probably 15 or 20 questions I didn't get a chance to ask. So hopefully I did you proud, Jason, and at least brought up stuff that I should have. But if you think I was missing anything, I'm going to give you an opportunity at the end of the show. If there's anything you want to say more about your business and your goals and trajectories, go ahead. But if you think I hit a lot of the points for you, I think we could end it there, or you could add on anything you wanted.
Yeah, Joe, this was awesome. I really like how you just made it a little more personal and not just going down the list of business. How do you make money? What's your product? It was really engaging to talk with you. I hope we get to talk again. Um,
Yeah.
the one thing that I wanted to throw in along the way, that I felt like saying, is that in the vein of being of service, um, we are always interested in meeting people who are interested in robotics technology and are wondering how to apply it in their business, and just want to maybe have a conversation about what the technology enables today and how that looks. So we're always open to a conversation or someone reaching in just to chat robots, or take a problem that they have in their day to day and see how they can make it more efficient.
Well, like I said, you and I should maybe try to see if we can have another conversation and
Let's
collaborate
do it.
on how I can do that. I mean, I have so many ideas on how to move the needle of this space because some of the things that you've talked about in what you're trying to do is one of the reasons that this space is sitting stale and stagnant. Like to put in perspective, and this would be a good little mid tidbit at the end of the show, but in Europe, um, there's millions of robotic mowers and
Mhm.
they embrace it. But in the United States, it's not even hitting the adoption curve yet. And the reason is, I believe it's because our labor rates are a little lower in the United States than they are in Europe.
Mhm.
And um, we people in the United States just think there's this endless amount of people that are willing to do jobs, and that's not really the case. But everything you are doing, I know with certainty is what this space is missing. It's it's making sure the robot is sending data and knowing that it is actually working so somebody doesn't come out surprised that their grass is a foot tall, you know, or making sure that if there's a problem, the robot is actually alerting you and it's not just an alert in an app. Because one of the things I say all the time is all these manufacturers, they're putting everything into an app, but we're so app overloaded now, people shut their alerts or their apps off because
Right. I don't.
right. So so it's like I'm always looking at it like there has to be a better way. And when I look at all these smart devices, I mean, at the end of the day, our device is like it's an outdoor appliance. So it's like a smart appliance. So these are the things that I would actually want to talk to you further on because I think there's a
Yeah,
much bigger play than just hyper focusing on the cutting of grass or whatever. So we should continue talk about this off
let's do
show.
that. I
So
have a list of questions I'd love to ask you. We can, so it'd be great to connect again when you have a chance.
yeah, great. All right.
Okay,
So
sounds super.
awesome.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for inviting me. I enjoyed talking with you, and look forward to seeing the show.
All right. Thanks, Jason.